When Hurricanes Irma and Maria made landfall in Puerto Rico in September 2017, they left massive damage in their wake. The storms knocked out 80% of Puerto Rico's electrical grid, causing an 11-month blackout, the longest in U.S. history. These hurricanes revealed the fragility and dire strait of Puerto Rico's electrical grid, which had been suffering from years of mismanagement and deferred maintenance by the Puerto Rico Electric Power Authority, or PREPA, the island's public electrical utility. Since then, PREPA has undergone a major overhaul of its management, operations, and finances. This overhaul included entering into private-public partnerships that privatize the management of most of PREPA's assets. In 2021, the management of PREPA's electrical transmission and distribution infrastructure was awarded to Luma Energy, and in 2023, operations of PREPA's thermal generation assets were awarded to Genera. At the federal level, the DOE, FEMA, and HUD are all engaged in efforts aimed at rebuilding Puerto Rico's electrical grid. Of the three federal agencies, FEMA, or the Federal Emergency Management Agency, provides the lion's share of federal funding. Of the $21 billion of federal funds obligated for Puerto Rico, approximately $16.8 billion are FEMA funds. It has been 7 years since Hurricanes Irma and Maria, and yet Puerto Rico continues to suffer major power outage incidents with no clear end in sight. To that end, I am deeply disappointed that our witnesses from the Biden-Harris administration have declined to testify today. As you all can see, our first panel today has empty chairs as the administration witnesses refuse to show up to address this incredibly important issue. We had hoped that their testimony would help us better understand the federal government's efforts in Puerto Rico and how the over $20 billion in obligated taxpayer dollars are being spent on the island. Troublingly, the Biden-Harris administration has pushed an energy agenda on the island focused on building unreliable energy resources such as wind and solar, while ignoring the need for reliable and affordable baseload energy sources to meet the island's basic needs. Their radical approach is neither feasible nor sustainable and disregards the basic needs of the island's more than 3 million residents. I am particularly disappointed in the lack of participation from FEMA and the DOE. When declining the invitation to testify, the DOE stated that their, quote, senior leaders on Puerto Rico matters remain at a critical juncture with starting installations of solar panels and batteries in Puerto Rico. It is hard to believe that not a single person is available to testify across an entire federal department. FEMA responded to this committee by stating that they are not willing to testify if the DOE is not. Quite mature in their response. Given the fact that nearly 80% of the federal funds obligated for Puerto Rico come from FEMA, it is troubling that FEMA believes that they can sideline themselves on this issue. It is unacceptable that our invited witnesses from Washington, D.C. are unwilling to testify when all of our witnesses from Puerto Rico have traveled to be here with us today. The Biden-Harris administration's lack of participation in this hearing is yet another sign that while they may talk the talk, they are unwilling to walk the walk when it comes to helping the American people. Our fellow Americans in Puerto Rico and across the nation deserve better. Needless to say, we will be submitting questions for the record to the administration witnesses after this hearing. I want to thank the witnesses who have come before us today for traveling many miles to be here. I look forward to hearing from them on their ongoing work to rebuild Puerto Rico's electrical grid and the challenges that they have been facing. And I want to thank those of you who came to my office yesterday to provide me with additional information about the challenges that you have. I learned so much, and I'm extremely appreciative that you're all here today to address this important issue. All the stakeholders involved in rebuilding Puerto Rico's electrical grid must understand the importance of committing to addressing the issues that are raised here today. The residents of Puerto Rico deserve access to reliable, affordable, and resilient energy. Once again, I would like to thank our witnesses who are with us today, and I look forward to their testimony. My questions are first going to be directed to Mr. Saka and Mr. McElmurray. Luma took over operations and maintenance of PREPA's transmission and distribution system in 2021. And Genera took over the operation and maintenance of PREPA's thermal generation asset in 2023. Would you please, starting with you, Mr. Saka, would you please describe the challenges your respective companies inherited from PREPA?
Challenges are many. First of all, it's an aging system that is on the average 32 years older than the average system. That means that replacing that equipment on a yearly basis, on a daily basis, is a very important matter, and it is actually still the cause of many of the outages that we have today, which is, failing equipment. That's one. Another one is vegetation. Vegetation is I would say, in the short term, the number one problem that we have to reduce outages. That is more than 50% of outages come from vegetation. The challenge with that is that we have 16,000 miles of vegetation that has to be cleared. 16,000 miles. I think you can go around the earth about, two-thirds, and I mean, it's just a massive undertaking. The interesting part of this is that it is owned, the rights of way are owned by PREPA. And we estimate that this will take 3 years to do, in other words, the clearing. And I want to make sure that we understand clearing, and, we're talking about having the clearing of all of the vegetation under the lines. And that is so important so that, when there is wind and when there is rain, it won't get impacted. And 3 years is a long time. I was there for Maria. People of Puerto Rico lost patience after Maria. The people of Puerto Rico now have lost tolerance for what's going on for so many years. And so, vegetation clearing is most important, and we can have a more deep discussion.
I'm going to follow up with you on that particular issue, but Mr. McElmurray, if you would just please very briefly describe some of the challenges that you inherited from PREPA.
Yes, ma'am. First of all, thank you, Congresswoman, for your question. And first, I want to acknowledge how difficult it is to be without electricity. The practical aspect of this can't be overlooked. Food spoils, medicine goes bad, kids can't go to school, businesses don't work. It's an intolerable situation, and I think in modern life, it's one of the worst things that can happen. With respect to your question, I would say there are three things. First of all is age. Just for context, the Puerto Rico electrical system today relies on power plants that were built before this country put a man on the moon. So we are relying on a set of equipment that is far beyond its useful life. The age of the generation fleet is over 40 years, which means essentially it was built in the first term of Ronald Reagan. Given, the form we're in today. And you see degradation, fatigue, cracks, corrosion, obsolete tech that are all the contributors to lack of availability. The second thing is lack of capital investment. So it's one thing to have old stuff. It's a second thing not to maintain it. Because of the financial issues and the choices that have been made over the last 20 to 25 years, there's been a lack of maintenance into these old facilities, which contributes just to the accelerated decline. And then the third is the effects of renewables. Renewables are an amazing technology. I have 3 children, and I hope one day—
Terribly expensive and terribly inefficient as well.
And, hopefully one day, given the public policy of Puerto Rico, that's where the grid goes. But I would say that given the technology that exists, those renewables put an incredible amount of stress on the type of technology that's installed. And so not only is it old, but it's the wrong type of technology, and it hasn't been maintained. So those are the 3 contributing factors that really, get to the point, which is the availability of reliable generation is not where it needs to be. And the only way to really address the problem is to create additional reliable generation.
So one of the things that I heard yesterday from everyone that I visited with in my office is the challenges associated with red tape for example, NEPA, and having to comply with NEPA and some of the historical preservation requirements that you have. Would every one of you agree that NEPA and the historical preservation obligations that you have been one of the primary challenges associated with providing reliable and affordable electricity to the Puerto Rican citizens? Yes? You would
An
all
absolute-
agree with that?
An absolute yes.
Okay. So one of the things we need to look at is whether we need to make some fundamental changes to NEPA and the historical preservation, or we're going to continue being unable to provide electricity to the citizens of Puerto Rico. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.